libertarian, it's tempting to look at the two old parties as the same, because in many critical ways, and in the ways that matter, they really are. They both are pro-war, pro-central bank, pro-police state, pro-surveillance state, and anti-your freedom. And the Republican Party is often described as the loyal opposition, but perhaps more accurately as the fake small government party, as you look under Republican presidents and Congresses over the last 100 years or so, and government has grown, I think, more with it depends on how you measure it, but it's been almost irrelevant which of the old parties has been in power in terms of the continued growth and intrusions of government. But there is a certain advantage in a government at least affirming its commitment to pretend to respect your rights, like it sometimes does with Republicans in charge. And right now we see Democrats going to the dangerous opposite end of the spectrum. And some would say it's better to have government officials that say, oh yeah, we're doing this to control you and manipulate society, and we think this is how it should be, rather than ones who do that and then say that they're doing the opposite. And now Biden is looking to restore faith in government. This from Los Angeles Times, David Lauter, Chris McGurian. Biden looks to shots in arms and money in pockets to reignite faith in government. And this kind of gets to the point of the difference between, a thief, a common criminal, a thug who will put a gun to your head to steal your wallet, and a politician. The thief will at least be honest, tell you what they want, take it, and leave you alone. A politician, however, who does the same thing, and everyone who supports government taxation at all is essentially putting a gun to your head. And maybe that's a dramatic exaggeration, but let's be clear. Taxation is theft. It's backed by coercion. Don't pay taxes the government thinks you owe and see what happens. First, they take your stuff. If you resist them taking your stuff, eventually they try to take you. If you resist them taking you, they will use force against you. If you resist them using force against you, they will kill you. Everything government does is backed up by that chain of threats, that coercion. The politician, in contrast to the thief, who believes, or at least is somehow capable of getting away with pretending that they're doing what they're doing for your own good, is a busybody who will never leave you alone. Like a mugger who moves into your home and is constantly telling you what to do, with the gun on his lap, sitting there, the threat of coercion ever present, refusing to just take what they want and leave, because what they want is so much more than the common thief. The common thief is after a specific goal, materialism. But government is driven by something far more insidious, psychopathic even, a desire to control and dominate and maintain a position that keeps you, the average working human, of course you would say, the average working American, but no, it's true about governments all over the world, to keep you in a state of being easily and continuously exploited. Why would you want to restore faith in such a system? Well, restoring faith in such a system, think about it from their perspective for a second here, makes the masses so much easier to control. Of course, you want to manage dissent and let everybody think that they can escape this system, that protest changes things, that this government is a reflection of the will of the people. But that is, upon the slightest examination, even for the most brainwashed of the masses, relatively easy to see. President Biden, to the story, saying, quote, help is here and hope is here in real and tangible ways, kicked off a week of high-level administration efforts to tout the benefits of his $1.9 trillion COVID-19 relief package as he seeks maximum political benefit from his first major legislative victory. Quote, in the next 10 days, we'll reach two giant goals. 100 million shots in people's arms and 100 million checks in people's pockets. $1,400. Did you get yours? Mine arrived this morning. Direct deposit. And you think about the price of gas going up, utilities, the debt that the average American is in, just catching up on bills. Where does that money go? Right back to corporate America, right back into taxes, right back to government. What do you get out of this? $1,400? You get a little relief, maybe. Maybe if you're financially responsible and you're ahead of the game, ahead of the zero, then a nice little bonus, certainly something to appreciate. I would say, as always, be conscious of how you spend it. Are you going to give it back to government? Are you going to get a pile of cheap plastic goods off the corporate pile of stuff? Get your little piece. Hey, what makes your life better, go for it. What do? They borrow how many tens of thousands of dollars in our name and give us a little back? And I'm not saying that giving a little back is the bad part. No. It's like Chad Daniels has a bit about government, when you should get an itemized receipt when you pay your taxes, right? The thing is, I don't think if they did, people would be very happy. There might, be a revolution or something. Because, you can go to 7-Eleven and they'll give you a receipt for a stick of beef jerky and sugar-free Red Bull, the most inconsequential purchase ever. But government, when they take your money, they just say, thanks. Except without the thanks. There would be a revolution if people really knew where the money was going. Because it's not, hey, they give a little back. Hey, that's great. That's great. But they're borrowing so much money in your name, increasing their control, government directing the flow of goods and services through. See, most people miss this. This is really important. I'm going to stop. Really just underscore this one point of economics that's really basic. It's pretty easy to understand. But most Americans kind of skip over that. And when government prints $1.9 trillion and makes something happen, they go, well, government made something happen. That's great, as if it's a net positive. Like if it wasn't for government doing all this, that net positive thing or that positive result of them spending that money just wouldn't exist. But that's absolutely not true. What government is doing when they print money, or they borrow money from the Fed, or they issue bonds, they're taking money out of the market, away from individuals that would go to meeting human needs, like paying for groceries and diapers and electric bills, things like that, car payments, mortgages. And instead, they're redirecting those resources to what government wants it to go to. So the more government spending there is, this is why communism has failed so spectacularly, is that all the fallacies of central planning are there. Now, Mr. Daniels concludes his segment saying, you know what? Sometimes I think that the only thing keeping me from a cabin in the woods and a half-written manifesto is a lack of funds, and maybe me and a bunch of my buddies are going to do that. How about instead of taking our taxes, you let us keep it? And I'm going to take that money, and a couple of my friends, we're going to get a cabin in the woods and a bunch of guns, and you see if you can take it back and try to run this country on import and excise taxes. Yeah, let's get back to our roots. But then here comes Biden. And the sad thing about this is that I know it's going to work to a certain degree. Biden's campaign to restore faith in government is going to have an effect. Because most people don't see that. They don't see, all right, you got $1,400. Can you see the consequence? Government is so good at hiding the consequences of their actions that all you see is that $1,400. People will have faith in government. The government, and you know what? I don't think the $1,400 is going to do it. $1,400, and people go, oh, all right, we're all good now. Yeah, COVID, government took care of us through COVID and gave us $1,400, and everything's okay. We forgive you. We're all good. No, 100 million shots in people's arms. I think that is primarily an excuse to reopen the economy because they can't keep it locked down much longer without causing a revolution, without causing more revolt. We've brought you those stories, and they keep coming and coming even as mandates are being lifted. But the economy has been so suppressed over the last year that Biden is going to be able to, get to the point of loosening all the restrictions, and the economy is going to come roaring back. But a more accurate perspective on the economy as a whole would be to say that it's going from its deathbed to back. It's going from its deathbed back to assisted living, not to youthful vigor, not to full health, not to where it should be. So, to the story, with shots in arms and money in pockets, as he put it, Biden is hoping not only for partisan advantage, but more broadly to restore Americans' trust in their government. That's the thing the president is expected to emphasize as he, Vice President Kamala Harris, First Lady Jill Biden, and senior administration officials hit the road this week, visiting politically critical states in what amounts to the administration's first sustained barnstorming tour since the inauguration. Yeah. So this is the danger of Democrats in power. And there are plenty of dangers of Republicans in power too, but there is one deeper danger here. And it's that Biden, despite my doubts and predictions of his failure, might succeed to some degree in restoring faith in a government in which we should have no faith at all. And today is Tuesday, March 16th. Welcome to Adam versus the Man. Thank you so much for joining us live today at our new time, of course, starting at 8 a.m. Pacific, going to 10 a.m. And no guests today, but doing guests on the top of the hour. We got a fun show for you today. We got stupid shit people say on the internet. Co-host Steven with us. Why don't you jump up on stage? I saw some of those comments flashing, but I was on too much of a tear, man. How's it going? How's the audience doing?
Dude, the audience is doing great, and they're pretty funny this morning. But I need to let you know something. Somebody wants you to restore faith in the government. No, we finally need free America. Kokesh 2024. So I'm going to ask, are you running in 2024?
Well, I made the commitment to everybody who supported me along the way with Kokesh 2020 that as long as the support was there, and I am absolutely confident in decentralization and localization, both as principle and in predictions of the way forward for humanity, and the sooner the better as the best way forward. And for myself as a messenger, at least I have proven my competency and my consistency in doing so. But far be it from me to suggest that I am the best or the only messenger capable of this. But as long as I am the one representing this particular strategy of running for president as a libertarian on the platform of dissolving the federal government and the support continues to grow, I will continue to run as long as the federal government continues to exist. So from everything I know, yes, we are preparing to run again in 2024, but no specific work yet on that.
Okay, and then there's another question I think needs to be answered. Does $1,400 even buy a decent escort anymore?
Well, so I wanted to share a couple things, and we're going to have an economics block. But before I forget, some bigger observations about the impact of this check. Right away, the labor market is going to be distorted in a couple ways. One, people are going to be discouraged from finding not under the table work, right? If you have that money coming from government or really work at all, right? If you, just got a $1,400 check and you've been thinking, you've been living off unemployment or some, you've been stretching the rubber band. Well, this rubber band is just you're not going to go, oh, well, I got $1,400, time to get a job. For most people, they're just going to keep stretching that rubber band and keep out of work for another couple of weeks, maybe a month, whatever it is, if they can live that cheap or whatever they've got going. And, as an example, I have a lot of awesome neighbors here in Juniperwood, and a lot of them, like conventionally around here would work for me for $10 an hour. And that's, they're worth more than that, but this is all cash, direct, no taxes, and walking distance from home, and you get to chill and smoke weed and have fun with me outside all day, right? and for a lot of the dudes and people, women too, like in situations like that, if you just got a $1,400 check and the neighbor says, hey, can you come over tomorrow? Well, I just got these new toys. I'm putting in some new solar at my place, or I got a new wind turbine, or I'm going on a trip with this money, or I've got this other project on, and it's just, so people are going to be, spending their money on that. And then in communities where there is, like, I imagine, it's not a lot of places in America. In America, we get the price gouging at the gas pump primarily. But in small communities where, direct exchange, cash for goods, crafts, food, local productions, farmers markets, things like that. Imagine a farmer's market where all of a sudden every customer had an extra $1,400 in their pocket. Prices are going to go up. There's going to be a lot more money chasing the same goods and services. This is like what we covered before with price inflation, and it's going to happen in some weird ways in terms of geography and chronology, because we have this sudden hit of everybody getting a $1,400 check. One place I think it's safe prices might, well, I mean, who knows? On Amazon, you're probably not getting, things like that. Gas stations, you're going to see the gas prices go up, but not the price of, snacks and drinks in the store, right? But you're going to see those, even those are going to go up. And we've seen all of those on a general trend creeping up. This $1,400 round of stimulus is only going to encourage that. So I don't know if anybody else wants to point out any, economic distortionary effects of a sudden stimulus like this. And it's not like it's, I don't know, is it the biggest ever? Maybe overall, there have been other sort of bailouts and tax rebates. What was it? Didn't Bush give everybody like a $400 check at one point? I think it was
like
geez,
07,
when
08.
was I working in California there? Bush was 2008. There's one point he gave everybody, $400 just like tax rebate or tax bonus check or something. So that's what I want to see from the comments today. Steven, what do you want to see from the comments today?
I want to see grammatically correct funny shit. I want to see grammatically correct funny shit. Now I'm going to say something about these $1,400 checks. We mentioned it 2-3 weeks ago. If I'm doing some rough math here, if 14 people donated those checks, if it was just extra money and 14 people donated some checks, Jim Freedom could get some dental work done.
Our executive producer.
the Jim Freedom. And then I kind of want you to address this one. I think they bring up a good point. Let's be real. These people are money laundering. I don't know what the definition of money laundering is, but they're definitely doing some shady shit.
Well, okay, so this begs some definitions, right? Money laundering, taking money from an unclean source, confusing its origin or separating it from its origin in order to clean it and make it look completely disconnected from any illegal or unclean activity. I wouldn't call it laundering in this case by any definition like that. What they're really doing is convincing people to just accept that dirty money it dominates our economy. Like they're not going, well, no, this money didn't actually come from government. They're going like, yeah, it's government money. Fuck you.
And then I like this comment. Next oil change will cost $1,400.
Yeah, it's I want to like. It's not, obviously that's a kind of an exaggeration, but there are going to be some things like there are going to be people. I think you're going to see a few ads in the next few days for like $1,400 pandemic relief specials. Relief specials. I don't know.
That's what this is.
You get an escort. You get a good escort for $1,400.
I bought this $400 check.
There you go. That's money well spent. So yeah, if anybody has anything that they're actually seeing for prices going up, I'd like to hear about that in the comments as well, or predicting.
I don't see any of that right now. Give it 15 seconds.
Yeah, right.
Want you to be president. Gray Moon. Good morning, oxymoron. Trustworthy government.
Yeah.
Somebody. Let's see. So, as we're waiting for those, do you think that Joe Biden is the puppet master, or is he the one being puppeted? I guess is the question here.
Biden is sort of old and not quite sharp enough. I haven't really examined. I've seen some of he stuttered here, misspoke, said really, the gaff machine stuff getting worse or accelerating. Is there dementia or Alzheimer's sitting in? I haven't really played that game and gone into that. But I still think he's fundamentally, like every other president, as I've described them, more of a power broker than a puppet. And they are competing for the sales job as the front man of this criminal organization. They're not really they're still, is their power bigger than those behind the scenes? No. But they kind of decide which strings to attach to themselves to get them to that particular position. So yeah, I think that model still holds true with Biden.
Now, here's some stuff. Bitcoin recently, Bitcoin went up recently. Coincidence? And then Dogecoin is going up.
Yeah, we got a crypto section in our econ block today. We'll get there.
Okay, let's do it.
All right. Well, before you go, a couple weather updates. AccuWeather.com, biggest total from record-shattering snowstorm, tops 50 inches. As I was doing my prep, it was actually snowing here in Ashford, and I could. Oh wait, it's dusting. I see.
It's dusting.
White specks just a dusting of snow right now. We got about an inch on the ground, and we are kind of at the southwestern tail of this giant storm. And I mentioned this yesterday, but here's we have a couple fun updates on it. Biggest total from record-shattering snowstorm, tops 50 inches. That's 4 feet 2 inches. A snowstorm of epic proportions swept across the western U.S. this past weekend, dropping over 3 feet of snow in many areas and leaving tens of thousands of residents without power under the heavy blanket of record-breaking snow totals. The storm left historic mounds of snow in its wake, dropping 30.8 inches of snow in Cheyenne, Wyoming, the most snow from a single storm the city had ever seen. The previous record, set in 1979, 25.2 inches over 2 days. this same system would become the fourth largest snowstorm in Denver history, over 27 inches at Denver International. Throughout Colorado, 5 locations got at least 3 feet of snow, led by Buckhorn Mountains, 42 inches recorded over the weekend. And Windy Peak, I guess, with the record there for this one, 52.5 inches of snow. I am glad I don't live there and instead just getting a taste of it. There's a cool picture. I love this. There's like a kid wading in snow up to his armpit. No, it says a man. Looks like a kid. I don't know. Either way, more or less full-heighted person. A man attempts to walk through deep snow in Casper, Wyoming on Sunday, March 14th. Apparently they just took that from someone's Facebook page. Now, interesting twist in this from CNN. Mexican dust found in Colorado blizzard. The snowstorm that broke records and brought parts of the Rockies to a standstill had something else that was quite literally buried in the snow, a layer of brownish snow that fell in New Mexico and Colorado with dust that had traveled all the way from Mexico. And there's a really cool map here of the weather pattern that shows this. And really of this giant storm, what we're getting here in northern Arizona is like a spin-off tail of the main storm system that's going up through Colorado. But you can see in the yellow there's this dust stream coming up the middle. And the dust is the National Weather Service in Albuquerque said the dust that was lofted this afternoon from the playas in Mexico has now been transported all the way into Colorado. We had a low that was tracking across the state and was bringing a lot of gusty winds from the southwest. You can see the satellite imagery and the dust being lofted. Crazy. And I just think it's, I almost saved this for Good News Friday, just to be like, look at what we can do. But this is just a really cool example of stuff we take for granted about technology we already have that we haven't even come close to fully implementing. I have 2 different weather apps on my phone. And last night, one of them said it was going to be 24 and one of them said it was going to be 36. That's a 12-degree difference. So like we're screwing something up somewhere. One more just fun random weather story. By the way, how's the weather in Georgia? It looks like you're clear according to radar.
Yeah, I mean, it gets about 60 degrees right now ish. Sometimes it dips down to the 50s. But I was in Florida this weekend. In shorts, we were like amazing. So it's hard to believe that you're in Gardenia and getting snow, and I'm in Florida petting alligators and shit.
Yeah. Well, this is the mountains. It's a big misconception. You say Arizona, everybody assumes the Phoenix Bowl where they set heat records all the time, and summers regularly get over 110. Whereas here really 120. I think there's regular 120 days over the summer in Phoenix. Whereas in here, it's here in the mountains, it's a freak hot day when we get to 100 degrees. But it does. We do occasionally hit 10, in the winters, and for March, getting down to freezing is a little unusual, but not crazy. Daily Star. Here we go to Mongolia for this next freak weather story today from the Daily Star. Apocalyptic sandstorm turns day to night as skies turn orange and hundreds go missing. The sandstorm was classified as one of the worst in the last decade and hit Mongolia and the neighboring country China. Videos shared online captured the eerie scenes as viewers called it a doomsday moment. Yeah. This is just crazy. And it's combined with high air pollution, of course, engulfed the southwest region of Mongolia. So far, killed 10 people, 548 missing as of Monday. Crazy. Now, how much do we trust numbers coming out of China? Not much at this point. But you look at this footage and you go, yeah, you could lose a lot of people in that sandstorm. Do you ever get to experiencing anything like that overseas?
Oh, hell yeah. Oh, yeah. I worked on the runway for deployment. and things had gotten really, really bad as far as we were constantly working and I wasn't able to get a lot of sleep. So one day, like I'm fucking done. I grab my bivy sack, I throw it on the next to the tarmac, and I go to sleep. I'm done. And some dude like drags me inside. I'm like, "What are you doing? I'm trying to sleep over here." And there was 3 inches of sand everywhere.
That's crazy to wake up with like that. Just poop dump pit. Like there's some places in the world where the weather just picks up the earth in a layer in dust form and then puts it down somewhere else 3 inches thick.
Think about what that does to an aircraft engine.
So did you have like air compressors to blow stuff out after that happened that were sealed from the sand somehow?
Leaf blowers.
Leaf blowers, okay. Yeah. Crazy. Yeah, you can spend a lot of time doing that. Well, with that, shall we jump? So keep the comments coming. Steven's going to be on for the rest of the show. We got to do promos, as always. AdamVersusTheMan.com. Find us on Patreon from AdamVersusTheMan.com. $10 a month gets you membership into the Producers Club. That's where it's really at. Of course, you can give us however much money a month you want. Remember, we need you, everybody watching, to be part of this active and engaged audience to make what we do in independent media possible. So if you're watching, put your money where your eyes and your ears are. Help keep us going, keep the lights on, and help build this team. We also have a public Telegram channel. If you don't buy your way into the Producers Club, you should probably be on both, because this one, t.me/AdamVersusTheMan, that's where we post the show notes every day with all the links that you'll hear us talk about on the air. Don't forget merchandise, AdamVersusTheMan.com. And if you want to buy cigars, CigarFederation.com, where promo code Adam10, all caps ADAM10, gets you 10% off. And check us out on Instagram with The Garden of Freedom, at The Garden of Freedom on Instagram. And if you want to join us for we're recruiting, check out the recruiting posts on Twitter or there on Instagram. Adam Kokesh is recruiting for the Gardenia Sovereignty Project, Adam versus the Man, and our new veteran service organization, Homefront Battle Buddies. A lot of cool developments about that. Looking to have our first formational organizational board member retreat May 1st and 2nd here. We got a super chat for $2 from Baki Shamil. Chemtrails are crazy in New York every day. Yeah, I believe it. The thing about, we haven't covered geoengineering for a while. And I'm actually kind of surprised there hasn't been more in the news about it. I don't know. They must be really effective at suppressing the chemtrails awareness activists right now. But yeah, if you have a story or something to sort of update us on that, I think for most people, or at least most woke people, or people who are paying attention about current events in general, chemtrails are an accepted phenomenon because we know about HAARP. We know where government admits to doing it. The big question is, how much more are they doing than what they're telling us, and what are they subjecting us to? What's in the air? And out here, we've seen a few things where you look at them and go, the odds of that pattern in the sky being contrails is pretty darn low. But we come out here. One of the reasons I live out here is that I know whatever if they are doing widespread geoengineering over populated areas, we're going to be a lot less likely to be subject to it here, or subject to a lot less. I don't think there's any particular meteorological reason to seed clouds from this particular climate zone or this area. And they're not trying to manipulate weather over any bigger agricultural things. I mean, we have cattle that are kind of getting pushed out by residential homesteading purchases in Juniper Wood Ranch. Would they seed clouds for more grass, for more cattle? I don't think that would be efficient. I don't think they're at that point yet with chemtrails. But yeah, I would love if you have a story or an article, something that you'd want me to cover as a general update on geoengineering. I'd love to share it here. All right, so we go to our top political news block now. ABC, as this headline GOP lawmakers slammed Biden after a visit to migrant detention center at border. The White House said critics aren't coming up with any solutions. House Republican leader Kevin McCarthy and a dozen GOP House members slammed President Joe Biden for what they claim has been a slow response to what they call an ongoing humanitarian crisis. Their criticism came after they visited a detention center on the U.S.-Mexico border Monday. It's, as McCarthy said, it's more than a crisis. This is a human heartbreak. McCarthy and his fellow Republicans have seized on Biden's immigration policies, blaming the administration for a surge of migrant crossings at the border. Democrats insist that McCarthy and his fellow Republicans are blowing the situation out of proportion. Pelosi said, quote, I guess their Dr. Seuss approach didn't work for them. Now they have to change the subject. Democrats say Republicans are angling to distract from the wildly popular $1.9 trillion COVID-19 relief package Biden just signed into law. Yeah, it's so popular. People are making T-shirts and bumper stickers. Dollar sign $1.9 trillion. Yeah. It is popular. Like we said, it is to a certain degree, and with the brainwashed masses going to do a lot of harm in restoring faith in government. GOP Senator, undeserved faith in government. GOP Senator John Cornyn took to the Senate floor Monday to describe his weekend trip to the Carrizo Springs, Texas border holding facility. Quote, unless action is taken to stem the flow of migrants across the border, that Category 5 hurricane is going to break the entire system. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki called the situation heartbreaking and not acceptable. And I think the challenge here is that there are not that many options. Now, the libertarian answer here is really obvious. Is, what is a legitimate border in the first place? Not government borders. No, you don't get to conquer an area and impose your rule on it and then draw a line on the sand and say, well, I control who goes in and out of this land because this is my land. It's not yours. Even in this artificial government paradigm concept of property rights, we still say you own this land, you own this, you own that. And that's the only legitimate border by which you can keep someone out of something. And this wrangling, especially after the clumsiness of the last 4 years, this is unfortunately an opportunity for the Democrats. And yes, there is some demographic manipulation here. If you're the one who welcomed people into the country, they're just more likely to vote for you, regardless of all other politics. So there's sort of a great low-hanging fruit here for the Democrats that I'm confident they will get under Biden. In that sense, good news, bad news, right? Good news in that we get slightly more freedom of movement, not nearly enough, but bad news is Democrats get entrenched, and either of the two parties feeling particularly emboldened or empowered or entrenched, even for short periods, is going to be bad for everybody. To California now, LA Times from Yahoo. Newsom won't take this recall attempt lying down as Democrats launch defense. And this is a fun story, not just because I personally got to sign the Governor Gavin Newsom recall petition, but as a general shakeup in American politics, the California gubernatorial recall procedure is a lot of fun. And I remember living through the Governor Gray Davis recall that got us Governor Schwarzenegger, the governor. So maybe with Newsom being recalled, we're going to have a really exciting off-season election for governor in California. However, if it fails, it might have a significant setback effect if the story becomes, well, there are a lot of people angry right now, but they're just an angry, stupid minority, and we need to have faith and confidence in the leadership of a great governor like Gavin Newsom, nephew to Nancy Pelosi, right? Governor Gavin Newsom lashed out Monday at the effort by critics to remove him from office, calling it a Republican recall, fueled by backers of former President Trump, and warning that it could stymie California's efforts to respond to the pandemic. Don't threaten my power or you will die from COVID because I will not be able to save you. That's the message. A coalition of national Democratic leaders also spoke out against the recall, and the state party promised $250,000 for the campaign to defend Newsom, a coordinated effort that may signal concession that the governor's opponents have collected enough voter signatures to force a special election later this year. Newsom said, quote, in an email from his political campaign, I'm not going to take this recall attempt lying down. I'm going to fight because there's too much at stake in this moment. Wednesday is the deadline for recall supporters to submit all voter-signed petitions to elections offices in California's 58 counties. Last week, supporters said they had gathered some 2 million signatures, more than the roughly 1.5 million needed, to trigger a recall election. Election officials have until April 29 to complete their review to determine how many are valid. Newsom had largely refused to comment until Monday, saying, of course, yeah, he's focused on his efforts to fight COVID by going to the French Laundry. So there are a lot of things that are motivating this recall. One is the hypocrisy, and part of it is was that a flip off, a middle finger? Oh, downward. Oh, they make a middle finger down emoji. I didn't even know that. All right, down, middle, or is that a thumbs down? Thumbs. Yeah, it's a middle finger down for Newsom. All right, so one is the handling, or is the hypocrisy, right? And this kind of goes to Nancy Pelosi. Remember, her home district is San Francisco. She's been the Speaker of the House for the last couple decades at least, while Democrats have had the majority in Congress, and been basically the head of Democrats in Congress for decades. She is his aunt, and the big hypocrisy with her is when everything was shut down, there's security camera footage leaked of her going to get her hair done in a salon when that was supposed to not be a thing. And there's so much, irony and hypocrisy layered into that. I don't even want to deconstruct it, but with Newsom, it was when restaurants were shut down. He was caught going to a fancy place called the French Laundry, where no masks, no distancing. It's a very expensive restaurant, and he was there with other California elites. The people don't like that kind of stuff. The other thing is the handling of COVID overall, and of course, it's not just the handling like, we don't like the lockdowns, we don't like the shutdowns, because in California they've been. There's been a lot of non-compliance. Like remember at the beginning of this, beaches shut down and they were arresting paddle boarders out in the ocean. Like when they came back to shore, they were chasing surfers down for it was nuts, like really, really nuts. And then there's the general economic impact, because they would expect that in California that whatever they have to do, they will pull together and the government will keep their economy going. But that wasn't the point of all this, and there were bigger forces at work than even Newsom here. I love the graphic Jim's got up there. My governor is an idiot. Recall Gavin2020.com. So there, what does he get to do to fight it? But here's one of the important things about what he's facing. A poll released Monday by Emerson College found just 38% of voters surveyed said they would vote to remove Newsom if a recall election was held. 42% said they would vote to keep Newsom in office, with the remainder saying unsure or wouldn't vote in a recall election. So it's actually, pretty close to split. And with the announcement that this is actually going to a vote, I think it's going to encourage a lot of people who have just been kind of passive or non-critical or not really examining Newsom's role in this specifically, to look at him and be like, oh yeah, fuck it, recall this guy. So Newsom supporters released a campaign ad Monday highlighting that some recall supporters also helped spread conspiracy theories related to the November. So yeah, that's what they're doing. They're smearing, it's Trump people behind this. And the email from the governor went on, quote, and let's call it what it is. It's a partisan Republican recall backed by the Republican National Committee, anti-mask and anti-vax extremists, and pro-Trump forces. Excuse me. You want to overturn the last election and have opposed much of what we have done to fight the pandemic. Although no Democrats have come forward to say they would run in a recall election to replace Newsom. Two prominent Republicans have announced they would seek out the remainder of Newsom's current term. Former San Diego Mayor Kevin Faulconer and 2018 gubernatorial candidate John Cox have both launched exploratory campaigns criticizing Newsom for a lackluster record of responding to the pandemic. And of course, don't forget the guy that's being written out of this story, former Libertarian, now Republican Nicholas Wildstar, running for governor at the next opportunity, assuming this one comes to fruition, and it's looking like it will now. So, finally, the last paragraph of the story: the Emerson College poll showed Newsom could struggle to win a second term if political conditions didn't change. 57% of California voters surveyed said they thought the state was headed in the right direction. 58% said they believed the state needed a new governor at the next scheduled election in 2022. Well, all they need is the recall to go through and to get it on the ballot to give them the opportunity to just do that a little bit earlier. From CNN, we catch up with our friend Ammon Bundy of the Bundy family in Nevada, not the Bunny Ranch, the Bundy standoff. Ammon Bundy won't wear a mask in courthouse, so judge has him arrested for failure to appear. Yeah. I've been to court just once, I guess, since the pandemic started. Got the thermal check at the door, wore my mask, didn't really push it because I was there to kiss ass, to help a friend as a character witness. So I wasn't there to challenge the court's procedures, or it wasn't sort of within the scope of the mission that day. But I would like to be able to be, if they try to get me to come to court again, although who knows where we're going to be with it at that point. But this is Nevada. Ammon Bundy, who was to go on trial after being charged with trespassing in the Idaho State House last year, was arrested Monday after he refused to wear a mask in court, according to Ada County Sheriff spokesperson Patrick Orr. The Idaho Supreme Court has a mask mandate for anyone entering a courthouse. But when Bundy showed up Monday morning for the first day of his jury trial, he wouldn't wear one and was denied entry. Magistrate Judge David Manweiler then issued a warrant for a failure to appear, a misdemeanor. It would be fun. I wish there was a situation like this where, because already, I don't know if you guys know this, when you go to court, they almost never check IDs, like sometimes at the door, but like when the court calls, like for traffic stuff, the court calls State of California versus Kokesh, is the defendant in the room, and I walk up and they go, okay, maybe they have a picture of me on the screen there. But what happens when when you're supposed to wear a mask the whole time? Can you send someone else to instead? Could you go and fuck with them and claim that you're someone else and stand in for them? Because you can go into if you're wearing a mask, you could go in and out of. I'm sure that you would be charged with something. That'd be a felony of some kind for because they defend their system, fucking with the courts. Felony, 10 years. But you really could at this point. And you could say, oh, I misheard. I was there. I was there for something else, and I heard the other name. I thought it was my name. Whoops. Right. So, Bundy was arrested and taken to the Ada County Jail, where he's being held on $10,000 bond for the failure to appear. Yeah. CNN apparently reached out to Bundy because, it would be, Joshua says it would be fraud. Right, so it would be fraud, but it would be defensive fraud. So it's like, if you know that there's a mafia organization that's about to go murder a family because they're refusing to pay their dues to the mafia, and you go and tell them the wrong address, that you're committing fraud against the mafia that's about to commit murder, extortionary intimidation murder. But you're depriving them of something that they have a right to, in a sense, or might have a right to know where these people are. and you're distorting their reality. But it's clearly to prevent them from committing murder. I'm trying to think if there's you could have another example where you commit a fraud, like to reclaim something that's stolen. Say you're just on the street and you see someone get mugged, and you see the mugger like just standing there with a weird situation. You see the mugger standing there with the wallet in his hand. You go, look, the cops are coming, just to distract him for a second so you can grab the wallet out of the hand. But yes, you committed fraud to deny him of property that was in his custody, but in order to return to the rightful owner in the interest of justice. So Steven says, I'm thinking it would be perjury. Could be contempt of court, but yeah, perjury would be a charge. You've been trolled. I want to know how the black robed wizards got so much power. You can't even question a judge. Yeah, and when we do police state updates kinds of stories, we cover that pretty regularly. So Bundy faces misdemeanor charges of trespassing and resisting arrest linked to the August incident at the Idaho State House. He was arrested for refusing to leave the Capitol in Boise during a special session of the legislature. Troopers were forced to physically remove Bundy from the Senate gallery, quote, police said at the time. Bundy and others were at the Capitol demanding an end to the state of emergency. So this is a pretty cool. I love this the civil disobedience strategy that Ammon is using here, because it's sort of low stakes trespassing, failure to appear, but I really wonder because he might actually end up winning this, unless they like muzzle. Like, how do you make him wear a mask the whole time he's in jail? He has to be able to take it off to eat. Are you going to make him ask permission to take some like locked muzzle off his head in order to eat? I mean, there's so much wrong, inhumane problems with the mask mandate to begin with. I mean, I think there are problems with clothing mandates to begin with, but hey, that's just me. But with Bundy here, it's going to be really fun to see how far he takes it. Are they going to put him in a muzzle to come to court? Put him in cuffs and put a mask on him, or face, have him cuffed with his hands behind his back so he can't touch it, and have like a face shield kind of mask on. Going to be really interesting to see how this plays out, and I'm excited to watch Ammon do his thing and challenge the system this way. All right, to international news, we go to Reuters. In Myanmar, people protest against military coup with tattoos. I love it. Protest tattoos. People in Myanmar. I mean, I have three. Three of my 4 tattoos are technically protest tattoos. How about that? People in Myanmar protesting the military, but none of them are like ones that except for the freedom logo. I mean, that's one thing. The freedom logo. This I have across my back, and I was the 5th person to get it. So, and I don't know how many other people have it at this point. People in Myanmar protesting the military seizure of power, which has sparked widespread violence in the country, have a new tool: coup-themed tattoos. Some are opting to have freedom from fear or spring revolution written on their bodies, while others favor drawings of ousted leader Aung San Suu Kyi's face or the movement's 3-finger salute. Now, there's something cool about this, I imagine, that sort of speaks to credibility. I remember what would it take for me to get a tattoo that a bunch of other people are getting? I almost got, well, I mean, the freedom logo did it for me, but as like something else ongoing or as part of a movement, the Ron Paul revolution inspired a lot of tattoos, and a lot of the Lovolution logo. It's like revolution stencil lettering, and then the word the evil is reversed, so it says love. So we call it the Lovolution. There were a lot of people who got that like along the forearm here, and they could flash their forearm and be like, "Yeah, Lovolution." And one of the things that's cool about this is that, and I want to kind of caution against the validity of this concept, but if someone is willing to get, and I want to say permanent. The thing is, tattoos aren't even that permanent anymore, right? In the sense that we have reasonably good tattoo laser removal services. But if they weren't, it would be a pretty good sign that someone is true to the cause, as opposed to an infiltrator or a plant. And now I think, oh, this is great. Like in Myanmar, they got tattoos. People know. Maybe that you go to jail. Oh, you got the tattoo. You're not. You're one of us. We can trust you. And it's not a foolproof indicator. It might be beaten because you could pay as much as they pay people. Like an FBI agent. I think it's the tattoo thing actually makes it more likely to be used as a tool to fake that commitment with a government agent who's well funded rather than like a plant or just an informant. But an actual agent working undercover, the FBI is going to say, oh yeah, you're going to get this, any tattoos you get. They could watch you get the tattoo as part of your initiation, and the FBI will say, we'll pay for the laser removal. Don't worry about it. You go in and do your undercover thing. We'll take care of it later. So these motifs, back to Myanmar, have become increasingly popular since the junta seized power on February 1st. Tattoo parlors say more than 80 people have been killed, 2,100 arrested in the crackdown by police and security forces on daily protests across the Southwest Asian nation. An advocacy group says, quote, I felt like I lost my future when I heard the news on February 1st. I feel so much in pain, and I don't want to forget that pain ever, said 23-year-old woman at a parlor in Yangon who did not want to be identified. She said she was getting the message freedom from fear written on her body, so she would never forget that pain, and to show younger generations how we got rid of this system. Many tattoo artists ink people for free in a show of solidarity in the days after the coup in early February. My freedom tattoo was free also, by the way. We've had a number of supporters who are tattoo artists offer pretty deep discounts for people who want the freedom tattoo. After reports that some of them were arrested, that is the tattoo artists, many parlors are trying to be more discreet, even though they continue to offer steep discounts. They threatened us with the weapons, but our revolution won't win if we have fear, said the customer in Yangon. So we must get rid of this kind of fear to prevail in our revolution. The leaders of the U.S. and some of its allies vowed on Friday to work together to restore democracy in Myanmar. Didn't they have democracy? Okay. Another opportunity for imperialism, right? But I think China might be in a better position, being a little bit closer to Myanmar. And this from Gallup, new high in perceptions of China as U.S.'s greatest enemy. So highlights China now seen as U.S.'s greatest enemy. Half of Americans believe China is the world's leading economic power. Record 63% say economic power of China is a critical threat to the U.S. So, first chart here into the numbers. Americans' perceptions of the U.S.'s greatest enemy. What one country anywhere in the world would you consider to be the United States' greatest enemy today? And it's such a perverted question. It's kind of like walking into a kindergarten class and asking every kid, which other kid do you hate the most? As opposed to like, who do you want to be friends with? Who do you want to trade with? We can assume you're going to get along at least with everybody, right? No, let's see who the enemy is. So what you have is China from 2021, from last year, going from 22% to 45%. That's crazy. Now, where did that come from? Russia actually went up also from 23 to 26%. North Korea, way down, 12% to 9%. But here's the big drop, and here's where you see the measure of the shift in the fear-mongering. Iran, last year, 19%. This year, just 4%. Iraq, last year, 7%, now just 2%. Then a bunch of ones and twos down there. And this really just shows how easily manipulated people are by that propaganda. Now, when they say, what country is the greatest enemy of this country? It's really like if you collectivize this group of people and this group of people, And you say, what's the greatest threat to this whole group of people? Well, if you say, what is the greatest threat to America, not what other country? Well, clearly the greatest threat to America is the U.S. government, the U.S. federal government in particular. Who steals from you? Who takes money out of your paycheck? Is it the Chinese? Who threatens you with arrest for smoking a plant? Is it the Russians? No. Who's spying on you? Is it Iran? Is Iran spying on you? Is that why you have to be careful about what you say about what might be illegal in your text messages or on the phone or on your email? Is it North Korea that's forcing you to wear a mask, threatening you with arrest if you don't comply with COVID shutdowns? No, that's the American government. And sadly, this when you create this collective identity of the United States, and I thought about this actually this morning and putting this international block together, like, what is the perspective for Adam versus the Man? Classical music. I call the U.S. government Big Daddy. Well, so I'm in Arizona. I live here in Juniper. Well, I live here in Gardenia, in the Juniper Wood Ranch neighborhood near Ashford in Arizona, and I have concentric community identities at each of those levels and with the United States as a whole. And I kind of hate to admit how ingrained that is. And part of it is just doing a show like this. There's a certain momentum to the conversation. There's an economic boundary of the borders of the United States that we bring in through empire resources from all over the world, and they bounce around within these walls. And we are thus sort of privileged that way as citizens of the empire. So there is a reality to this, like if you live in the United States, you're within this bubble, right? You live within these imaginary walls. And so naturally there's a conversation, there's an American, news cycle and what people are talking about. But there's also, I also consider myself a citizen of the world. And I don't want to say, like, you think about, like, here in Arizona, I probably have more in common with a Mexican homesteader living in the mountains and just over the border than I do with, a banker on Wall Street, or, even I'm trying to think of, or even, a waiter in New York, and certainly more in common with them than with politicians in the United States. So I hope that we can, in some ways, in how we look at this and continue to develop Adam versus the Man editorially, to reflect that sort of global consciousness. I don't pretend to not be speaking from within the walls of America. I don't pretend to not be an Arizonan or to not be part of the Juniper Wood Ranch community. But as much as possible, I want this show to be global in its scope, certainly from an unbiased and clear perspective. So, unfortunately, speaking from inside the walls of the empire, we have to represent that perspective as well. So we go to China directly now for the Sun, Big Bro 2.0, how China is building nightmarish surveillance state with cameras checking emotions and tracking social credit with AI. Big Brother-like mass state surveillance is being developed by China with streets full of cameras that can monitor citizens' emotions and track their social credit scores. Now, the use of this, again, I hate to point this out again and again and again, but it's not the technology that's bad, it's who controls it. And who knows how fun, gamified walking down the street would be with full virtual reality, interacting with cameras and other people who consent to be a part of that system. The problem is this social credit score is not based on broad social consent, it's based on the standards of government. So, as the infographic says, Big Brother rebooted. Not rebooted, just continuing to escalate. China's totalitarian regime is planning a range of chilling high-tech plans to watch and control its people. So One thing they have here is citizens monitor other citizens, and you can report on your neighbors. You have people facing jail time for violating some of these rules. You have spy cams everywhere. Well, see, when the United States, well, this is the Sun UK, right? When the Western media covers Asian surveillance states, they have state spy cams. When we cover them in the US or in our own territories, they're government security cameras looking out for your safety on the streets. I'd be able to identify people by their faces and actually monitor their emotions. Now, in and of itself, well, do you need an external system to monitor your emotions? Maybe not. Maybe that's a bad thing. But if you're smart, like if you're someone who struggles with mood control or anxiety or depression, whatever, maybe having the Google Glass or Facebook glasses tracking your face or monitoring your emotions and being able to pop up as a mental health assistant when you need it, or just friendly positive reminders, that might be a good thing. If it's government going, oh, he's in a bad mood, he might go smoke some pot, then we're going to track him or arrest him for pre-crimes. That's where it gets problematic. That's why I don't trust government to have anything to do with this. But again, is China spying? Yes, China spying on everybody. America. So it was the Five Eyes International Intelligence Coalition. That is the greater threat. But this is the stuff we're talking about that really matters, where a government spying directly on its citizens with direct control mechanisms. And it's in the it's not like, oh, this is unique to China by any stretch. And in the United States, where is it that they do it? Where it matters, where the money is. They have eyes on all the money, at least that which doesn't turn to cash in drug dealer hands. North Korea is next on our international roundup. CNN.com, North Korea breaks silence to warn U.S. against causing a stink. Yeah, don't cause a stink. Kim Yo-jong, the sister of North Korea's leader, warned the Biden administration against causing a stink at its first step on Monday, hours after the White House said it had not received a response to its outreach in Pyongyang. Quote, we take this opportunity to warn the new U.S. administration trying hard to give off powder smell in our land. If you want to sleep in our peace for the coming 4 years, it had better refrain from causing a stink at its first step. The warning comes as the U.S. and South Korea conduct scaled-down simulated military exercises, and U.S. Secretary of State Tony Blinken and Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin have touched down in the region for meetings with their Japanese and South Korean counterparts. Yeah. So I guess we'll see. We'll come back to North Korea, but we are seeing a new page in American-North Korean relations emerging with the Biden administration. So Russia next, catching up with Putin critic Navalny, France24.com, Putin critic Navalny serving time at a penal colony outside Moscow. Kremlin critic Alexei Navalny, who is serving a 2.5-year jail term in a penal colony outside Moscow, said Monday he was locked up in a real concentration camp. Yeah, what is this? Heron Adawan. Y'all remember when they arrested Adam for dancing? Okay. His comments were the first confirmation of widespread reports that the Russian opposition politician would be spending his sentence at one of the most notorious facilities in Russia's extensive network of over 600 work colonies. Yeah. As Instagram posted, or Navalny posted on Instagram along with an old photo of himself. So he's got people from, inside, from outside, posting stuff for him. He said, quote, I have to admit that the Russian prison system was able to surprise me. I had no idea that it was possible to arrange a real concentration camp 100 kilometers from Moscow. Navalny added that he was in penal colony number 2 in the town of Pokrov in the Vladimir region northeast of Moscow with a freshly shaven head. Also Monday, Navalny's lawyer, Olga Mikhailova, confirmed that he was at the colony, saying that she had been able to visit him. So, as he said, I think someone upstairs read Orwell's 1984 and said, yeah, cool, let's do this education through dehumanization. He says they are woken up every hour. I've experienced some stuff like that with checks where they wake you up with lights every hour at least. Now, and is it specifically in Navalny's case, in his Instagram post, he said, quote, that he was woken up at night every hour by a man who snaps a photo of him, announces that the convict who is prone to escape is still in his cell. So this is really interesting. We're going to, of course, as always, continue to follow the story of Alexei Navalny, the anti-graft campaigner who gained prominence for his investigations into the wealth of Russia's elites, insists the poisoning was carried out on the orders of President Vladimir Putin. Now, to Spain for a fun story, The Guardian has this headline: Spain to launch trial of 4-day working week. Government agrees to proposal from left-wing party Mas País, allowing companies to test reduced hours. Like, you couldn't do that themselves? Yeah, different level of socialism in Spain and control here. But if they do it with government employees, and that's the new standard, it's going to be really interesting. Spain, notorious for limiting hours at work with siesta schedules and whatnot. I think the saying there is, we work to live, not live to work. Spain could become one of the first countries in the world to trial the 4-day working week after the government agreed to launch a modest pilot project for companies interested in the idea. Earlier this year, the small left-wing Spanish party Mas País announced that the government had accepted its proposal to test out the idea. Talks have since been held, with the next meeting expected to take place in the coming weeks. And it makes you wonder, like, how do they set this? You know, like, and we'll come back to this one way or another. It's really interesting to see if they're going, like, how is this enforced? Like, if they go, well, hey, the new standard is the 4-day work week, 32 hours. In a private company, semi-private, you know, or an individual just taking shifts in retail says, no, I want to keep working 5 days a week, or I want to keep working 6 days a week. You know, how is that going to play out legally? We'll find out. All right, and that's our international news blog. We'll come back for economics and our grab bag. Let's go back to Stephen, get Stephen back up on stage here, check in with the audience. Had some great comments. Stephen, anything in terms of economic observations like we were discussing earlier, or anything that blew your mind? You're muted.
I want to go back to the questions from earlier. Dogecoin and Bitcoin are both increasing in value. So regarding that, do you think it would be a good investment, or at least maintaining value of your money, to take that $1,400 check and get what, a tenth of a Dogecoin or 0.2?
Absolutely. No, I mean, really, in terms of conscientious consumerism, the best thing that you can do with that $1,400 is just immediately get it out of US dollars. If you are not in a position to spend it, or have a need to spend it, or bills to pay, if you can take this as an opportunity to invest in crypto one way or another, I say Bitcoin, just Bitcoin Core, the original BTC, is always a safe bet. Bitcoin Cash, also similarly stable. Ethereum, similarly, if you wanted to have, a simple 3-coin diversification. But there are other great opportunities, and those three I don't follow the markets close enough to say whether they're over or undervalued right now, or what direction they might be going in the short and midterm. But if you, the only downside with crypto is you do have to think about all of these things. If you don't want to think about it, and you got $1,400 in your account today, go buy some silver, go buy some gold, buy a little physical, and put it away and make it your savings. And it's a vote against the dollar to say, I am going to hold this as a store of wealth that the dollar really can't touch.
Okay, so I want to ask a question. Do you think if everybody went out and took all their U.S. currency and bought Doge and Bitcoin and all the cryptos, do you think that would coincidentally crash the U.S. economy?
Well, when you say crash the U.S. economy, there are different ways of defining that, and a lot of people say, well, if the stock market crashes, that would be, people sometimes say the economy, and they're really just talking about what the stock market is doing. And one of my favorite pieces from the propaganda bits from the late John McCain was the fundamentals of the American economy are strong, and that's true, regardless of monetary system. So maybe to your question, what would the effects be if everybody in America took that $1,400 and bought crypto right now? First of all, crypto would go way up. That would be cool. Dollar would go down, not like to crash, because you would still have an economy primarily functioning on US dollars, but it would go down, with a probably significantly noticeable bump. And what it might cause to happen is enough destabilization in the major markets to cause some kind of upheaval in the stock market, to cause significant overall downward trend, or a sudden downward shift in some sectors, especially those related to currency or the banking system. Crypto stocks, of course, would go way up. Everybody in the crypto sphere stocks, who have companies that are working in that arena, obviously they would go up. I don't think by itself, all of these $1,400 checks, I mean, what are they? It's of the $1.9 trillion, it's a few hundred billion. I hate to say, it's just a few hundred. It's a small part of the overall 1.9 trillion. Well, let's see. What Biden's goal was 100 million checks, right?
100 million checks in 10 days.
Yeah, times $1,400 equals 140 billion. So it's not even 1/10 of the stimulus. 90+%. So it's, even if all the money disappeared, hold on. Even if all the money disappeared in the world disappeared, except for this 1.9 trillion and the part that the people got converted into Bitcoin, if the rest of the dollar system sustained around that, it would still be 90+% of the money in circulation. As it is, this $140 billion that we're getting is a tiny, tiny drop in the bucket of all the US dollars in the world. So it would represent a major shift in flow that could have repercussions, but the overall scale of it is still relatively small.
Yeah.
We need to keep promoting crypto until the valuation gets to the point where it can compete. But it's still a long way from that.
So I do want to point something out. He said 100 million checks. I'm getting a $1,400 check. My fiance is getting a $1,400 check. But then you got people like my buddy who's got 4 kids and he's married. So he's not going to get a $1,400 check. They're going to get 14 plus 14, that's 28, plus another 24, 52, like 7,200. Their check's going to be 7,200. So you figure if he's doing 100 million checks, it could be $250 billion.
It's still a tiny part of the
1.9
trillion. But you're right to point that out.
Classical Music says, will the U.S. roll out a UBI? And I want to kind of answer this one if you don't mind.
Please.
I think we are. I think that my personal prediction, give it 6 months to a year, and we will see maybe a $1,400 check every month, every 30 days. Here's your $1,400. And that would bring the universal basic income to $14,000 plus 28, so $16,800. I think that we are already there. I think that a UBI has been established. They just haven't produced documents for it. And then you've been T-rolled, who messages all the time. Says Doge is skyrocketing. And he's also answered my question for Adam. As long as the U.S. economy is backed by Hellfire missiles, the U.S. economy will never collapse. But a few buildings might.
Yeah, so Stephen, I'm with you there. I just want to say one other thing about the UBI is that the only question is whether they're ever going to call it that. We will. I think it's a very safe prediction to say that we're already halfway to a temporary UBI, And the question is, will it become permanent, or how permanent will it become? How long will it last? And will they actually call it UBI, or will they forever pretend that it's COVID relief?
So there's two things I want to ask about that. When was the last time you saw the U.S. government temporarily do dumb shit?
Right.
So I do think that it's probably gonna be permanent. And then you also like say, hey, if I have a bologna sandwich and you take my bologna off of it and you shit in it, it's no longer a bologna sandwich without the bologna.
Yeah.
It's a shit sandwich. So
So
I don't think that we have to call it what it is for it to be what it is. I mean, what do we call the military? The Department of Defense? I mean, when was the last time they defended us? Like they're fucking the shit out of people since, World War II. The Department of Education is making our kids dumber. We live in 1984. It's what is it? Doublespeak? I mean, we're already there. They can call it what they want to call it, but I think it's going to textbook match UBI. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I wanted to make a bigger point from all of this because this makes it very tempting to accept the idea that this government is so entrenched and designed to grow that there is no hope of scaling it back, either in size or in coercion or influence of coercion. Therefore, the collapsitarian perspective becomes very tempting, that even the accelerationist, that we should accelerate a collapse, let it die as peaceful a death as possible, so we can get on to the next phase. And I'm going to take this as an opportunity to plug our presidential campaign platform, because this is how we offer a way out that accepts that premise, right? A lot of people, a lot of libertarians trying to fight the size of government think that you can fundamentally change the course of the federal government. I don't say that it's impossible. But certainly after this, we've said this before, plenty of pundits have said this, every time a $1 trillion plus spending bill has come out of the federal government. Oh, this is it. This is the beginning of the end. And I have certainly pointed out the significance of those in the past, but I do think this one is special. And hypothetically, they at least get worse every time. But I do think this one is special, as in, if we're going down a dollar going off a cliff, there's a period of acceleration before collapse. This might take us into that, or into a broader phase of collapse of the federal government. And it's gonna, like, if nobody does anything, if nobody offers a way out, it's going to get a lot worse before it gets better. And this is where we as libertarians can come in and say, we're offering a way out, and it's a practical one that addresses the fact that maybe the federal government can't be stopped from growing. Even if the people wanted that or conscientiously knew it, that it was so entrenched in institutionalized propaganda and social momentum and economic forces around the dollar that it simply can't. And you can't convince enough people to get on the page for one plan to reduce it as much as you can nearly as easily as you can get a critical mass of people to support it just continuing to grow in red flavor or blue flavored layers. So localization saying, hey, we don't have to let it collapse or grow out of control or change people's concept of what government should be. All we have to do is agree that we can localize or decentralize one step here in the U.S., and instead of the federal government being the supreme government body in America, have each state at least be legally and politically sovereign as independent states. So that's why I think that's important, right? Does that connect to what you're talking about with the 1.9 trillion in the UBI?
It does. And then I want to bring this up. I'm thinking about buying land that's historically produced lead instead of crypto. Anyone tried to fund ammo recently? So there are two things I want
Try
to hit.
to find ammo, I think is what he meant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, also it's just fucking expensive. I mean,
yeah. Even when you can find it, right?
5.56 is $1 a round right now. Yeah, XM855 4 years ago was 32 cents a round, and now it's hovering between 95 and $1.15.
Now you probably know a lot more about this than I do, but just so everybody else knows, so you're saying it's $1 to $1.50 now for a single round.
No,
That's a
95 cents to $1.15.
okay. So okay, excuse me. For a single bullet, and we call it a round because the bullet refers to, and we're breaking it way down here. The bullet is the projectile that leaves the gun out of the barrel. The round is the whole cartridge, the brass, the powder, and the primer that makes a spark to light the powder from the impact of the hammer of the gun.
Yep.
And that round 5 years ago, you said cost about 30 cents?
Yeah, I bought, well, let's see. I spent $1,500 on 6,000 rounds. So let me do the math real quick.
That's a quarter a round, isn't it?
Yeah, somewhere right around there. I'll call it that. Let's see, 15,000 divided by
$1,500 divided by 6,000 rounds.
Yep.
Would be a quarter per round.
Okay.
So I remember when before I became a felon and buying 5.56 just so I had a security stash around the house and occasional fun shoots. Yeah, I mean you can't do like. I remember back then that it was overpriced already, right? Yeah. Like at a quarter a round, you go, it shouldn't cost this much. That round should actually cost like what? I mean, like 5 cents a round. I mean, if it was just the manufacturing cost and not all the taxes and premiums imposed on it being around and all of the artificial inflation around the commodities around it, in sort of real economic terms, that round should cost what, 5 to 10 cents each.
Yeah.
At most, and realistically, the value, or the cost of everything, should come down over time as we get more efficient and effective at producing it. Barring sudden surges in demand or reductions in manufacturing supplies or whatever manufacturing expenses go up. But that's not the case here. It's not like we're running out of brass or lead or gunpowder to pull out of the ground. So there are a couple of implications of this. I mean, but that's crazy to think, just to go from a quarter to $1 roughly over 5 years to around a 5.56.
So this time last year, this round was 5.5 cents. This is 22. It's copper. We paid $40 for 300 rounds. $40 so we paid 30 cents a round for this. A year ago, it was 6 cents a round. 9mm is about $1 a round right now. I mean, that's getting expensive. So he brings up two things here. I think it's really one thing, but he breaks it down into two: ammo and land. I'm personally spending my money on things that I think may get banned because I want them now. I don't want to try to buy 30-round mags when they're not making any more for public use, because they're going to continue to make 30-round mags. They're just not going to sell them to me. They're going to sell them, like Magpul won't go out of business if they do a magazine ban. They'll just have one client. That'll be the U.S. federal government. So he also brings up land. Have you seen in rural Arizona, has land gone up recently?
I have not been tracking.
Okay.
But I should be looking at the market because I do want to expand Gardenia and buy some of the lots around me. But that reminds me of another opportunity here. $1,400. Remember, land, unlike a car, or a cell phone is something that is very hard to lose or steal or devalue even. So financing for land is the easiest to get, and there's a lot of owner financing out there. $1,400 is a down payment on a homestead sized chunk of land.
Yeah.
Remember, I paid $13,000 for my 11 acres. You can get a 5-acre plot. You can get a cheaper plot, and $1,400. If you consider that a 20% down payment on land, a $7,000 chunk of land out here will make a very happy homestead.
And then if you have a family,
or a bug out spot, even if all you do is get a tiny house out here or buy 5 acres and lock up a survival shipping container for yourself out there, you got a bug out spot, peace of mind, and an investment that is among the most secure in its value of all assets.
Yeah. We're looking at that here in North Georgia. I left Atlanta because the government is doing what government does, and it does it more efficiently in Atlanta than Dade County. So it's not a safe place to live if you have issues with the government. So we're looking at land now, and I'm thinking that those $2,800 in stimulus checks might make a good down payment for some raw land. Can we talk guns for a moment, though? I kind of want to address something for the audience.
Well, I still want my $500 home defense air rifle. Who's got the best one of those to recommend?
I told you, 45 shot potato launcher. Babe, if you'll lean in for a second.
No.
Okay.
Solar mounted LRAD.
So this is I need to see something. I'm going to cover that up because I don't want you seeing the serial number. This is about $1,200. I got a $300 optic, the rifle, the scope, the sling, the light, 5.56. I have a feeling they're going to ban 5.56 here in the next couple of years.
$1,200 buys you a very, very nice AR package as a complete home defense tool, and at least 200 rounds of ammo for the remaining $200. But I think you would suggest that a $400 version of that would still be a very effective basic home defense tool.
So we're getting to that right now. This is mine. This is 8.5 pounds. I have fought wars. I'm a rather fit dude. I've done the war stuff. It's physically heavy. It requires some fitness here and there.
Doesn't sound like much, but just to underscore this point, an 8.5 pound stick that you have to wave around and hold in precise position to use effectively, consistently, is becomes a serious weight, right?
Yeah, and to kind of demonstrate something, this rifle is meant for me because my arm is locked out. Everything's like that. It's the fighting man's rifle.
Yeah.
We bought something, or I didn't buy anything. My fiance bought something, and we are building her own little rifle. So this weighs, what do we say, 2 pounds 4 ounces right now? It's going to get a little bit more weight, but it's an AR-15 pistol. It's 22 caliber, so there's no recoil on it. It's super small. She can hold this indefinitely, like I can hold that rifle indefinitely. We're about to throw a scope on it, or a little red dot probably. It's got the pistol brace. The pistol brace works as a buttstock as well. We paid $5.99 for this. $4.99. We paid $500 for this. We're gonna stock up on some mags, some ammo, get the red dot on there, and probably the rifle, the sling, and the optic are gonna cost. We're easily gonna be less than $700. So you could do 2 of these. You add some mags. I hate to say this, but if you want to be self-sufficient, you have to worry about your own security. I think even if you're not going to be self-sufficient, you have to worry about your own security. We're kind of getting her in that position now.
Why do you own a gun? Because a cop won't fit in your pocket.
Well, it's more economically feasible to have this rather than pay a guy who has this to follow me around 24/7. And I like shooting, so this would be a rather practical thing. It is super tiny. It's almost uncomfortable for me to shoot like that, or it is uncomfortable. That's a little bit more comfortable, but for my fiance, who is 5 foot even, 4'9", this is the equivalent. This for her is the equivalent of this for me.
Right.
My arms locked out. I'm pulling against my body. I've got a good stance. Everything that goes along with that. So if you're opposed to firearms, I'm going to urge you to reconsider, and that's it. I'm not going to get into a gun debate right now. I have been told that my 9mm and my 5.56 aren't big enough. I have never shot somebody and they go, "You didn't put a big enough hole in me, motherfucker." So if you put a 22 in somebody, I got a feeling that there's going to be some things that are said besides "not big enough, bitch." I just don't see that coming. This is half of your stimulus check right here. This is half. With an optic and a sling and a few mags. This is half.
And I just will point out, this is why you go to a gun store and talk to somebody and tell them what your applications are and your preferences are, and go to a gun range and get some familiarization with various systems before you jump in and purchase something. But yeah, to underscore Steven's point in general, another great investment with your stimulus check, home defense and or self-defense, and buying a firearm is also kind of a liquid asset. It's an investment that it holds its value very well. I think guns are kind of overpriced right now, especially right now.
Yeah.
But in general, guns are they can't lose all of their value and are generally pretty stable in sustaining it. The actual value of guns, like if we had a proper free market around the entire gun industry, guns would be very cheap. You know, like that base, what do you say, base level AR is $400 now. Like a cheap but complete AR basic rifle.
I'm going to say the M&P 15 is probably the most basic AR you can get, and those are about $650 right now.
Okay, I think I remember them being 400 like 5-10 years ago, right? Something like that. Yeah. But let's say $600. You know, that rifle itself like should retail without just the extra gun cost. And I'm just going to ballpark it off the top of my head. Let me know if you think this is right. You know, would be closer to $100 retail. You know, what is the actual cost of manufacturing that device? Putting those pieces of metal together.
You're saying if there was no taxation and they didn't have to pay for the FBI or the ATF to come in.
No special overhead imposed on firearms.
I'm thinking that $1,200 AR real quickly becomes $300 with everything on it. Because think about this.
Well, hold on. The stuff that's on it, the accessories themselves, like scopes, red dots, pistol grips, even buttstock extenders, are pretty separate, just retail items. But the firearms themselves being so expensive is a result of the taxes and overhead imposed on firearm sales themselves, and the artificial limitations on production and so on that create an artificially high proportionate demand. And that, I mean, I'm trying to think like what's a similar manufactured good that's a dense piece of metal, precisely assembled, with about as many parts as an AR and plastic components. How much does it cost to make, say, a desktop computer is kind of a bad. Maybe like I'm trying to think of some tool, so like a skill saw, right? Like a nail gun or a skill saw. Some kind of like mid-sized construction handheld tool would be the equivalent. And there's nothing that like costs $600 that's the amount of manufacturing resource investment as there is in a basic AR. Tools of that same sort of cost of manufacturing are in the, it depending on cost and over tools like electronics and stuff that go into them and precision cutting devices. It's like rifling, and the trigger mechanisms are the only real precise, carefully machined, not the only, but the critically precise, more difficult to manufacture parts of an AR. But the tools that are the equivalent today are in the $50 to $200 range. Like I can get a 16-inch electric chainsaw. It's a badass. As my favorite chainsaw, it's $80.
So
you can't tell me that manufacturing an AR is, 8 times that to get to $640. 80 times 8, $640 is 8 times the manufacturing expense of making my electric chainsaw. That's actually a pretty good, analog, except that it has the electric motor and electric components, right?
There are two things I want to add. Cody Willis, I think is his name. Ghost Gunner.
Wilson. Cody Wilson. Yeah, we should have him on the show again.
We should. I would love to be a part of that
Marcus.
show.
Write that down.
Okay. I'll tell Marcus. He produced a 3D printed gun, and he said that there was $4 in plastic.
Yeah.
For the entire gun. Now that's plastic and not metal. That's something that's come to my mind is buying one of those. The other thing that's come to my mind, and I saw this years ago, and I should have done it. I didn't do it. You can buy a chunk of metal for $8, and then you drill the holes yourself, and you do all this stuff.
An incomplete lower receiver.
Yeah,
so it's not a gun. Right. Yeah. There's some weird ways around this if you really want to look into it. And Steven, I want to get back to the econ news here, but I would also point out, not just potato guns, but there are a lot of guns you can make at home. And one of the dudes I've interviewed, something cat, I forget his name, like Big Cat, but has a channel on YouTube for homemade firearms. And if you wanted to be really cheap and have a bunch of single shot shotguns just around your house, as you could just say, yeah, in every room in the house, I've got a secret place where I can grab a homemade single tube boom and fire a shotgun round into somebody if I have to, like that. There are some really cheap ways to get that and have it completely off the record. So there's no paperwork. Anyway, let's get back to the economic news and get some more comments. I know Steven's got to catch up getting back to the comments after all that wisdom sharing, and then we got whatever he wants for winners. We've got a few different comment contests going simultaneously right now. But first, to the Wall Street Journal. When CEOs really think we'll come back to work, the executive split over office return dates, business travel, and remote work's long-term viability. Top executives are seeing the light at the end of the pandemic tunnel as the U.S. vaccination efforts continue to ramp up and more states expand eligibility for shots. But corporate leaders are still split on what the workplace will look like in 2021 and beyond. Here's what some top executives are saying about coming out of COVID-19 lockdowns, widening vaccinations and bringing people back into the workplace. And I would bet that a lot of these are based on those particular preferences. I'll just read one of these. Jane Fraser, Chief Executive Officer, Citigroup, I certainly imagine everyone back in the office. I do think from a cultural point of view, apprenticeship, the sense of belonging, you are better together. Um, anyway, the story gets into this, that there's still a big fight, and a lot of different corporate interests are able to manipulate the timing coming back to work to their own advantage. Now to some crypto news from Bloomberg via Yahoo. Retail Bitcoin traders rival Wall Street buyers as mania builds. The cryptocurrency market's little guys are going toe-to-toe with big banks as Bitcoin continues to surge to new highs. Data compiled by JP Morgan Chase and Company suggests using Square and PayPal data as a proxy, retail investors have purchased over 187,000 Bitcoin so far this quarter, compared to roughly 205,000 last quarter. Strategists, including Nikolaos Panagiotsoglou, wrote in a Friday report. Meanwhile, institutions have bought about 173,000 of the world's largest cryptocurrency over that time frame, as gathered by Bitcoin futures, fund flow, and company announcements after buying nearly 307,000 in the last quarter of 2020. Now, to Bloomberg opinion, crypto's rising. So are the stakes for governments everywhere. Competition in the global market for cash is heating up. And I love hearing this. For centuries, money issued by governments has served as the lifeblood of the global economy, the currencies in which people hold savings, make payments, and keep accounts, and in which nations measure their wealth and geopolitical power. But in our digital age, it's facing a bizarre postmodern sort of competition. Cryptocurrencies, created to supplant the traditional sovereign kind, have become a widespread obsession, inspiring their own counterculture and attracting hundreds of billions of dollars in speculative investment that may or may not have anything to do with their viability. How, if at all, should issuers of the world's official currencies respond? In a word, carefully. As financial regulators, they need to strike a balance between encouraging innovation and preventing harm. Most important is competition in the global market for cash. They need to improve their products. Yeah, there's that nice element of competition. But are they ever going to de-engineer fiat currencies to be fundamentally inflationary? No, that's not really the point. And the article doesn't say, carefully, yes, certainly carefully, but why? To maintain their ability to rip people off. And that's the critical difference between free market money and money that's forced on people, is that free market money requires your consent to use it. And you don't even notice this when there's a dominant currency in the market like the US dollar, that there is a gun backing it up, that it is essentially forced on us. Whereas you can choose to opt out now in ways that were previously unavailable due to legal restrictions that covered anything that would, compete with the dollar or look like a currency. But because Bitcoin is decentralized and nobody owns it, it's just a code out there around the internet, it has been able to achieve status as a legitimate competing currency with all fiat currencies in the world. And it's very exciting to see that it's having an impact at that level. Business Insider, the first U.S. cannabis ETF surpassed $1 billion in AUM in its first 6 months of trading. The advisor shares pure U.S. cannabis ETF has surpassed $1 billion in just 6 months. Oh, you know what? This is something we cover. Why is this? Someone shared this in the Producers Club, and I didn't realize until just now that we'd covered this story earlier. Excuse me. To the next one, Reuters. GM builds pickups without certain modules due to global chip shortage, hurting fuel economy. General Motors Company said on Monday that due to the global semiconductor chip shortage in the U.S., automaker is building. General Motors Company said on Monday that due to the global semiconductor chip shortage, the U.S. automaker is building certain 2021 light-duty full-size pickup trucks without a fuel management module, hurting those vehicles' fuel economy performance. The lack of the active fuel management / dynamic fuel management module means affected models equipped with a 5.3-liter Ecotec 3 V8 engine with both 6 and 8-speed auto transmission will have lower fuel economy by 1 mile per gallon. That's pretty significant. Wow. So I was kind of wondering, why is this happening? And it doesn't really get into it. except to say at the end here, the shortage, which is at automakers globally, stems from a confluence of factors as car makers, which shut plants for 2 months during the COVID-19 pandemic last year, compete with the sprawling consumer electronics industry for chip supply. So maybe staying home is causing people to spend more money on electronics than on cars, and due to all the dumb vulnerabilities built into this corporate manufacturing system, you're going to see weird little quirks like this. AFP via Yahoo: Baltimore Sun deal sets a major test for nonprofit news model. And it's kind of interesting to see what this might mean as implications for media as a whole, and even for independent media outlets like Adam versus the Man. Rob Lever writes, after years of staff cuts, shrinking budgets, and declining readership, the Baltimore Sun finally has some good news to report about itself, a deal for a new nonprofit group to take over and potentially revive the struggling newspaper. The plan, unveiled in February, comes in response to an extraordinary movement supported by civic and business leaders, sports figures, journalists, and others to rescue the 184-year-old newspaper and bring it back to local ownership. The nonprofit Sunlight for All Institute, led by businessman Stuart Bainum, struck the tentative deal to acquire the Sun and affiliate newspapers for $65 million. Nice start for a nonprofit, right? As part of the sale of parent firm Tribune Publishing to Alden Global Capital. The agreement represents a major new test for the nonprofit model, which has gained momentum in recent years in response to the deepening crisis in the sector. Newsroom employment at Newsmax fell by half between 2008 and 19, according to Pew Research, with more cuts reported during the pandemic. So there are going to be other shifts like this, and what this might actually represent is not like, a mainstream corporate media dies because independent media takes over, because independent media is more connected with a organic and less corrupted audience. But maybe there's going to be a merging where the old corporate media has to turn away from corporate advertising as its main revenue source, or subscriptions. Subscriptions are obviously, those can be sustained when you have a product that people will pay subscribe to. But even then, in most of the mainstream media, it's backed up with, you pay for your cable and you watch ads on TV. It seems like, why have both? But if commercial advertising has less of an effect, because there is, even with consumerism as strong as it is, and overall advertising as strong as it is, I wish I had some data to back this up. Please, someone look this up for me if you can. If you want to help me out, maybe we'll do a story on this tomorrow, or Good News for Friday. But I would be very strongly inclined to believe that TV advertising, billboard advertising, actually I know with radio from my own experience, that might be a format thing, but even like print magazine advertising, signage, is having less of an effect on consumer choices. The immediacy of geographical reminders, that's different. Like, hey, gas station up ahead, go to ours, that kind of billboard. We have Indian moccasins or whatever, knives, stuff they advertise on the 40 here. Those kinds of things might stay relevant. But like, if you're going on Amazon, you're looking at Amazon reviews, why would people be advertising? So instead of advertising there, so the old advertising model here might be a more fundamental shift, right, from just those traditional models to review sites. Believe it or not, a lot of reviews on Amazon aren't real. A lot of them are plants. A lot of services exist to boost your product reviews online. But there's still enough that's legitimate and organic that you can see through in that make you think, people are making decisions more based on the immediate date. Like, if in the past, if you saw a TV ad for a car and then a TV ad for another car, you might be comparing those ads in the image and go, well, they're both TV, or they're both cars on TV. I'll see if I can look up reliability ratings. Oh, they're about the same. I'm going to go with what feels good. Now you do that comparison shopping for anything important online. Brand ID is important, sports drinks, things like that. Maybe that will have a role in advertising. But the point is, it's less of a significant pillar of the old media now. All right, we got a super chat for $1.99 from B Horning 2. Should we repeal the harsh rules of the UCMJ? Well, you wouldn't have a UCMJ if you had a market for defense that had a militia-based security system that the founders of this country won rather than the standing army that we have today. So saying, should we abolish the UCMJ is like, should we abolish the mafia code of conduct at their headquarters building? I mean, no, get rid of the whole mafia. I don't really, of course, yes, but the UCMJ is not, singled out as some particularly deviant injustice in the whole system of militarism. So anyway, back to what were we talking about? So traditional media losing that kind of commercial support or ability to sell newspapers by promoting product. I think that going away is a real positive thing. And what that might lead to is, like I said, a sort of meeting in the middle, synthesis of old and new media. All right, in our grab bag, study finds. We're just going to go over these real quickly, check in with Stephen again, and then get to the good news. High emotional intelligence helps people recognize fake news. Yeah, misinformation, fake news continue to be a major problem across social media platforms. Now, a new study reports people with high emotional intelligence are much less likely to fall for deceptive and untrue items. Nice to see that studied. HBO's, this is from Daily Beast via Yahoo. HBO's QAnon docuseries Q Into the Storm believes it has discovered Q's identity. Can we call this another January 6th follow-up story just to piss off CJ? Maybe. All right, but we're not going to get into this. If you want to, again, links to all the stories in the notes at t.me/Adam versus the man. NBC New York, one finds husband's secret Instagram account full of recipes he makes for her. I just thought this was a fun, quirky story to share. And Fox 2 now, Louisiana oil and gas industry in danger. Oh no, after President Biden cancels 80 million acre oil lease sale. I'm much more inclined to believe that this is Biden politically pandering, making it look like he's anti-oil and gas while doing something in the oil and gas industry of only enough effect to sway the market one way or another to advantage those who paid for him to get into office in the first place. Someone sent me the FBI. I think it was Kim in the Producers Club. Here we go. First time pulling up. It must have been overloaded on the FBI website earlier. FBI.gov. FBI releases report on Nashville bombing. Remember, we covered this from the December, the Christmas bombing, downtown Nashville. So they're saying that they're putting a name on it and saying that he acted alone, built and ultimately detonated the vehicle-borne IED. His actions were determined to not be related to terrorism, and I think it was just personal. It took diligent steps to determine the reason or reasons why he decided to detonate this device, and decided that it was an intentional act in an effort to end his own life, driven in part by a totality of life stressors, including paranoia, long-held individualized beliefs adopted from several eccentric conspiracy theories. Oh, it must have been that. And losing the loss of stabilizing angers and deteriorating interpersonal relationships. Yeah. Blame the bad ideas on the internet. And with that, let's check in with Stephen. We got just a minute to go in today's show. Who's the winner of today's comment contest, Stephen? You're muted, I believe.
Do we get a drum roll? Can I have a drum roll? Mike Miller, Adam Kokesh, news you can trust on.
What? Say it again.
Mike Miller says, Adam Kokesh, news you can count on.
Well, I think, let's see, someone today was trying, I like that. I was talking to my friend Scott about the Joe Rogan thing, and I came up with this. about Joe Rogan admitting to censoring our show or my episode on his show. Adam Kokesh, like Joe Rogan, but honest. You should listen to Adam versus the Man, not the Joe Rogan Experience. And yeah, it's crazy. They're saying he's sold out. If you haven't seen that video, check it out on our YouTube. Congratulations to our winner today. Thank you for co-hosting. You did an awesome job today, Steven. Don't forget to go to AdamVersusTheMan.com. Join us on Patreon, patreon.com/AdamVersusTheMan. Find it through there where you can find our merch. Go to CigarFederation.com where promo code ADAM, Adam10, all caps, gets you 10% off. And follow the Garden of Freedom on Instagram at the Garden of Freedom. Check me out on Twitter at Adam Kokesh. My pinned post is our little employment to Joe Rogan is definitely a sellout. So go to my Twitter. Yes, stay free, everyone. Thank you, Euban. And then, so on Twitter, you can find our sort of job listing for what we're recruiting for with Adam versus the Man, the Gardenia Sovereignty Project, and of course, Homefront Battle Buddy. So to goodnewsnetwork.org for this day in history. It was 95 years ago today. Dr. Robert Goddard launched the world's first liquid-fueled rocket after building it himself. That's pretty cool. And that's all the good news we have time for, although I will point out the last one because it's a bit of a personal one. On this day in 2006, just 15 years ago, soon after I left the country, Iraq's new parliament met briefly for the first time to take the oath. I would hardly say that the installation of a puppet government as a new satellite in the American empire is good news, but that's our good news from goodnewsnetwork.org today for this day in history. Mwah. Peace and love, y'all. Choose happiness and be excellent to each other.